Hi, this is Michael Blank for KLVW, and welcome to our first in our new series, Know Your Local Government. Today, we're honored to have Mayor Robert Arace from Manchester. Welcome, Mayor.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Great. So, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure thing. So I'll go through three phases. I'll go personal life, education, and then profession.
Perfect.
I think, like many folks, when I was very young, my family decided to move down to Ocean County from North Jersey, and I think they wanted to, flee the crowd, flee the congestion, and come down to a little bit more of a rural area. So I've spent nearly my entire life in Ocean County. Education-wise, I'm a product of OCVTS, the trade school. I actually did computer science there. I went to Ocean County College, transferred to Monmouth University. So I think what would be a really good typical path for a student to take to save tuition money. I went to Monmouth University, graduated with a degree in finance. Professionally, I've actually been at the same job since I graduated. It's a technology company in Red Bank. And there I'm a principal consultant, which I lead basically strategy projects, anything tech related, from websites, marketing, app development, database development, customer relationship management. And typically if there's an issue that can be solved with technology, we'll basically step in and take care of whatever the problem is. And now obviously being mayor for a year and a half, previously served on the township zoning board. And in January of 2023, they swore me in, and I've been working hard ever since.
Great. Do you work with AI as well? Or?
A little bit, yeah. AI is becoming more and more important. Some of the platforms that we use for customer relationship management have integrated AI, where you can go ahead and ask it a question. Who are my best customers? What are the last products they've purchased? What's their propensity to buy in the future? So some of the platforms are using AI.
That would have been great in my past.
Oh, it's going to change the world for the good.
Really?
For worse and better.
Worse and better, correct.
Yeah.
So you answered this kind of, but what is your background and what do you bring to the table for Manchester?
Yeah, I think what's been very unique, especially in my job, is that nothing's ever the same. A problem comes from a client, whether it be marketing, supply, just general revenue optimization, it's never the same.
Right.
So I kind of took that skill set over the course of now the past 10 years, never really knowing totally what's coming, but being able to put it through a problem-solving skill set. So same thing with the township, and that's actually what makes it really exciting and fun. Every single day I walk through the doors, there could be something new, whether it's police-related, emergency service-related, fire-related, senior services, veteran services. There's always a new challenge, and I think that you really need to be able to kind of think quickly on your feet, take the data in, and then really make smart, informed decisions.
Right.
I think something else that I bring from learning over the course of the past 10 years at my job is that I'm also surrounded by really great subject matter experts. So when you step in as a new mayor and you have your department heads, your business administrator, your CFO, director of recreation, building and inspections, public works, they've been here for many years. They really know what they're doing. So I think you need to admit the things you don't know.
Exactly.
Use the folks around you as really great tools, and they're phenomenal, and then be able to make really good decision making off of that. So that is what I have been doing now for the past 18 months.
And no matter what you think you know, when you walk into the job, you walk in, it's like, oh.
Exactly.
So it's a whole learning. It's exciting.
A whole learning experience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Not what you thought it was. Totally.
It's really interesting. You kind of, there are the resident concerns. Obviously, primarily in this case, had been development, which I know we'll get to kind of further along here, that are accurate. Normally, the people do know best about the town, so you do get here and you see that those particular interests ring true. And then there are the technical side of things, the finance side of things, the budget line item pieces, funding each of the various departments. And then you start looking like, oh, okay, there are extreme difficulties in every area across the board, especially pressures from inflation, for instance, and budgets are hurting all over the place. And so that has been expected, but certainly we found, I think, things we didn't think we'd find.
Great.
Yeah.
So, when you were elected, and I'm going to quote something that you said.
Sure thing.
You said you're going to fight to protect and preserve the rural character of our township. So how exactly have you done that?
Sure thing. Yeah, so what you find out quickly, there are a number of ways to protect the rural character of the town. The best way is through land preservation. And then there are other ways through, master plan reexamination, assessing various zones in town. So the long-term play is that we are looking to do that now. We're establishing a master plan committee that is basically comprised of residents and also members of council and myself, where we look at the town holistically, from zone by zone, region by region, and really start making the best decisions of what we want in which parts of the town. That'll be the long-term play. What we've done short-term, however, we've worked very hard on open space acquisitions, primarily done through the county, so it's not costing the township directly. The Ocean County Natural Land Trust Fund is actually coming in and acquiring these pieces. So what we have done is we have an open space committee. The open space committee is really led by our tax assessor, Martin Lynch. He had gone through the town and identified parcels of property of priority where we thought were very likely to potentially preserve, and areas where residential development would likely be happening. So an example of that is actually on the Whiting side of town. The Cherry Street property had 4 apartment buildings coming and 98 units. Folks in Whiting were obviously very unhappy about that. That's right by Whiting Fire Station, if you're familiar. It is a nice rural part of town. There's a blueberry farm, Champion Blueberry Farm, that's not far away. So what we were able to do there is we approached the owner, actually U.S. Homes, and typically if there is a willing seller, the county is typically a willing buyer, and they go and they do their due diligence and they send out appraisers and they come to a price that if both parties agree on, the county would typically purchase that piece of property. So the county, in that case, and that was around 30 acres or so, came in and purchased that piece of property, stopped 98 units in that case. And something that U.S. Homes has done around the county, north and south and east, but not necessarily to the west, is they provide veteran housing. So actually on the piece of property that was preserved, they subdivided 4 small 1-acre lots where they're actually looking to build veteran homes, and they'll donate those homes to wounded veterans or wounded warriors, and then the township will actually waive the any taxes, whether it be county, school, or township. So that was the one, and that was about 30 acres or so. I think most exciting is that for the past 18 months, we've been working on an 88-acre parcel, 571. This would impact Leisure Village West. I'm in Hollyoaks, so it's certainly the northern eastern corridor of town. There's 88 acres, and it had an approval for 460 homes on it. So we've been working very closely and diligently with the Ocean County Natural Land Trust Fund. We've gone and presented before them. We've gone to ensure that our residents' desires were known at this committee. And actually 2 weeks ago, they voted to recommend the purchase to the Ocean County Commissioner Board. So this would be an 88-acre reservation, would stop 460 homes in that case. The asking price, and I believe the price that will likely be agreed upon, is $20.5 million. Wow. But now the Ocean County Commissioner Board has to vote on that. I don't know how they'll vote, but I'll certainly be there to express the township desire again. But we've found a lot of success. Right now we're over 112 acres. This piece and another 16-acre piece will put us over 200, and around 500 units stopped. So we'll continue identifying parcels of land and aggressively preserving them.
That's music to my ears.
Me too.
Well, you touched a little bit on this, but so what changes have you made since you're in office? For instance, like infrastructure, open space, grants, police,
Absolutely.
EMS.
Yeah.
DPW, and I know that's a loaded question.
For sure.
So.
Yeah. Well, we'll start in a number of areas. We'll start with roads. And now in this case, this isn't a direct impact to Leisure Village West because it's obviously a private community.
Right.
But I think if you ask anybody, especially in Pine Lake Park, the Roosevelt City area, I think the township in general was a little behind on a road kind of replacement cycle. So something we're doing this year, and actually music to our public work director's ears, is that we are investing aggressively in roads. So we actually received $750,000 of grants from the NJDOT. Station Road will be done in Whiting. Colt Place will be done on the east side of town. We're doing Larchmont and Champlain and Pine Lake Park, if you're familiar. We're doing 2 drainage projects in Pine Lake Park and a road project on New York Avenue in Roosevelt City. It will actually be the most we've spent on infrastructure and roads ever in a single year. Wow. To catch up to where we need to be, because I think we really had fallen behind. Historically, I think water in Manchester, obviously in the late 80s, there had always been kind of issues with water. A lot of that was resolved. They put in a water tank, for instance, to help with water restriction issues. However, generally, we're now making major investments into water. We have come up with a 10-year water basically master plan. And over the course of those 10 years, that would address, sanitation facilities, wells, and water mains. Over the course of 10 years, from our water and sewer engineer, they have identified $120 million of upgrades to get our water system to where it needs to be in the next 10 years. Now that sounds expensive.
Yeah, sure does.
So now what we've been doing, we've been working with various federal, state, and county agencies. So for instance, starting with county, year one of our plan is to actually redo a water main on Buckingham Drive. That's actually Leisure Knoll right across the street from Leisure Village West. That water main desperately needs to be replaced. We've gone to the county. We actually submitted the plans, the bid specification plans of what needs to be done for that project, and they actually provided us the funding to do that project. Now, a small portion of the larger grand scale of things, but they're actually covering that water main project for $1.8 million. We've submitted to Congressman Smith's office for $5 million of water infrastructure money that he is now looking to get as an earmark funding source in the next federal budget cycle. So we are looking and identifying opportunities for funding, so it's not all on the shoulders of the municipalities' taxpayers.
Right.
Something else that we've done, we took an additional $16 million of those projects, actually submitted them with Senator Cory Booker, and they have now made it into a subcommittee. Now that's not guaranteed that we're going to get that money.
Right.
But it's now made into a subcommittee, so we're looking for various sources. So I think we're being very aggressive with roads, more aggressive than we have been. I think we're being very diligent with water now. We do come up with an annual water quality report on an annual basis. So 2024 came out. We do meet every standard benchmark for safe drinking water. So it's not to say that our water is not safe. It certainly is. We want to get ahead of the road. We want to make sure that our water mains, wells, sanitation facilities are where they need to be, so we're investing heavily. So I think that if you look historically, not to say that nothing had been done, because it certainly has been, we've taken those two pieces extremely seriously. When it comes to, I'll go to police next, the police vehicles are an aging fleet. So we're 82 square miles. Again, I know some folks in LVW say, oh, well, you don't patrol our streets because they're, private streets. That'll typically be, one of the complaints, but we're still 82 square miles. A lot of ground to cover. So those patrol cars, they quickly either meet or exceed 100,000 miles in no time. Now, slightly over 100,000 miles for a standard vehicle really isn't a big deal, but the wear and tear and idling and constant use in the cars.
And not highway driving.
Not highway driving, just stopping, starting, going, speeding, doing whatever they need to do to respond appropriately. The expense to maintain those vehicles grows. So at the time, our traffic safety officer, now our new chief of police, Antonio Ellis, just was at Leisure Village West and gave a presentation.
Yes.
Gave us an inventory of the vehicles, actually 8 vehicles that need to be replaced basically immediately. And we actually submitted that to Congressman Smith's office last year in a federal budget cycle. And he was able to secure $1.14 million from a federal earmark that was then used as a reimbursement, basically grant from the federal government. So as we purchase vehicles, we get reimbursed from that federal grant. So we're able to secure probably 8 or more vehicles based on the 1.14.
That's great.
And then for DPW, if you looked at the kind of public works equipment has been aging, you see significant wear and tear. So we've also made investments into public works vehicles to ensure that they can service the town. 2 parks are coming. 1 grant funded. The Little League's going to have a baseball themed playground. That's DCA grant funded. And then we're actually the Tuskegee Airmen Park in Richard Estates. We're starting actually as of this week to get complete. It was a little delayed from supply chain issue. And I'm not sure if you've seen it, but there was a splash pad in Pine Lake Park that was in desperate need of repairs, and we've revitalized that this year as well. So I think that was a whole lot, a mouthful, but that's kind of where we are from infrastructure investments and police.
Well, that's great. There was something I was going to ask, but it skipped my mind, so we may get back to that.
Sure, sounds good.
Okay, so since we have a very large senior community in Manchester, so what are we doing to improve their quality of life here in Manchester?
Sure thing. So a number of things. The first thing that I wound up doing, and you may have met her, but Junie Noonan is a aide to the mayor's office, and she's specifically the senior community liaison. So something that I heard especially on the campaign trail that folks, especially on Whiting, but the east side as well, in senior communities felt somewhat disconnected from the government. They didn't know where to go. Sometimes council meetings are difficult to get to. They're 6 o'clock on every other Monday. Sometimes, especially in the winter when it's after dark, seniors don't want to come. So we quickly established Judy as the senior community liaison. I personally think she's great. I've heard a lot of really good things, but she's very much in the ear of what the seniors need. She was instrumental along with Melissa Del Palma. She's our senior outreach coordinator, but we now have activities on the east and west side of town.
Right.
Judy's been very instrumental in creating technology training classes with kids from the school. So she's working with the school district. She's bringing kids in, bringing seniors in to learn about computers and give them lessons for several hours. They've done a number of those. I think the next big thing is that obviously fraud amongst seniors and people taking advantage of seniors, whether it be fake IRS agents or fake customer service representatives defrauding seniors. On July 17th, we actually have a class where our chief of police will be there. Judy will be there. I think more than 70 folks have signed up to really teach seniors the dangers of this and how to identify those signs. So I think just general listening, having a direct liaison, providing additional activities, I think providing these trainings,
right.
and most of all, folks on the west side of town had a very hard time coming to the east side of town. So we opened up a what we're calling a Whiting Annex in our EMS building.
Okay.
And we took a part of our senior services staff and put them 3 days a week in Whiting. And now, instead of having to come across town, they have Judy at their beck and call, and also Judy once a week is in Whiting. And then we have our senior service outreach staff there as well to help with paperwork and programs.
And we're actually going to be filming the July 17th meeting.
Oh, great.
So it'll be available, even if people can't get there.
That's a really good idea.
They'll be able to see it.
And then in addition to that, just touching on veterans a little bit as well in that same building. So working with the county, we actually brought 2 veteran service officers to that building as well.
Ah.
And they are also there, I believe, 3 days a week. And instead of having to go to Tom's River, they can go and have help with survivor benefits and pension and medical benefits.
That's great.
Happen there as well. And then we'll likely be expanding to consumer affairs. We'll have a consumer affairs representative from the county in that building, again, so the seniors don't have to hike across the entire county to get help.
That's great. So we touched on this privately talking, but so we hear about the cutting taxes for seniors in either 2025, 2026, and how is that going to impact the revenue that we're bringing in taxes every year, and
Sure.
how could we recoup that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the way the program is set up right now, and I believe in this last round of the state budget, they did at least fund a portion of it. So it's actually not a tax waiver; it's a tax credit. So the township will actually still receive the full payment of property taxes based on the assessed value and property tax rate. So the township's ratables will not change, and the seniors will actually receive it in a tax credit from the state. So township-wise, we'll still be fully funded and where we need to be.
Right.
And then at the end of the year, I believe that will come as a tax credit to the household.
Okay, so this is actually a state program.
Yeah, Stay NJ is a state program, so they're not directly impacting municipal revenue sources.
Yeah.
We'll still have those intact. And then they will provide, I think, similar to like anchor benefits. That's a touchy subject, however, because I know some folks haven't gotten their anchor benefit checks from the state. But the idea is, at the end of the year, would be a tax credit.
Okay, but the anchor program is still going to continue.
Yes, it would be in addition to that.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, they're like 3 years behind or something.
Yeah, they probably
like
are.
that.
Yeah, I don't think Judy's gotten her check either. So she's certainly told me about it.
Okay, so could you tell me in your own words why Manchester is the great place to live?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's very unique. Like I said, I think a lot of folks come from North Jersey, just like my family. It's somewhat nestled away in the Pine Barrens. Mm-hmm. Half of our town with state and national pine preserve and the military bases preserved.
Right.
Plus the township, I think, aggressively pursuing land preservation to really fight for the rural character puts us in a very unique position where you can come in a quiet place that's not far from the shore. It's not far from amenities. Some folks say it is, but it's really not too far. But it's quiet. I think a great place to retire, a wonderful place to raise your family, nestled away somewhat to the west of the county, not necessarily dealing with the absolute congestion and over traffic of the northern towns.
Right.
It's happening gradually, and we're looking to plan for that long term. But I really do think it's a gem nestled in the pines, quiet, not far away from amenities, still close to the shore. I think really great HOAs and private retirement communities. I think we have wonderful young communities. We have great parks. And I personally love it here. So hopefully everyone else does too.
I think, well, I love it here. And
Yeah.
I'm only here 2.5 years. The thing that I was going to ask you about when we were talking about infrastructure was, I had read somewhere that there was a problem with the water at the bases, the joint bases.
Yeah.
Does that have anything to do with us? Is it infiltrating our water supply in any way?
Yeah, so it's a really good point that you brought it up. So part of our plan has actually been to address that issue as well. So Joint Base, particularly the Air Force, we've been working with them very closely on remediating a well so far that had been impacted. So there are PFAS, PFOA contaminants coming off of the base. Original source had actually been firefighting foam that they had used on a repeated basis to start jet fuel fires and put them out for training. And that foam had actually seeped into the aquifers, and they're gradually identifying the extent of the plume coming off of the base.
Okay.
Now, what does that mean for us? There are maps of kind of where the contaminants have originated from, where the contaminants are ultimately going, and we do measure both of our systems, both east and west. Both our utility systems are actually broken up into two. Okay. So the one of concern is actually the eastern utility area, which is this side of town. And there had been one seasonal well that was not activated at the time. We only turned it on in the summer when we need additional water source to avoid water restrictions.
Right.
So our utilities department, tests those on a monthly basis, and they had noticed that it had exceeded, not by a lot, maybe by a point or two of the minimum threshold of where it should be for PFAS.
Okay.
So that is where we now have gone and work closely with the Air Force, and they have provided a mechanism for us and funding for temporary filtration. So I believe the first round was about $400,000, give or take. We've applied temporary filtration onto that well. They have now expanded that out, I believe, to last for 2 or 3 years. So in total, not an exact number, but around $800,000 of temporary filtration. And they will eventually help us pay for and provide for a permanent solution on those wells as well. So again, I think us being proactive with the 10-year water plan,
right,
eventually identifying additional areas for shallow wells, being proactive with the Air Force to ensure that we're applying filtration. So again, now that that well is in full service, we're filtering out PFAS, PFOA. That well's good to go. Something else that we've done, we've also created or have entered into shared service agreements with both Jackson Township and Lakehurst and Jackson Township to purchase water from them. So in a component of the federal money that Chris Smith was able to secure for Lakehurst, there's actually a component about $175,000 or so to finish a connection between our two systems. So we'll have Lakehurst for a source, we'll have Jackson Township as a source after a water sewer project happens this year, and we'll be able to get 2 additional sources of water, and then also working with the Air Force to filter it. So we certainly are impacted, but I think we are currently ahead of where we need to be to address
Right, so our residents don't have to be worried about drinking our water.
Yeah, water meet all standards, and we're applying temporary filtration to a well that was impacted. A lot of the wells that are impacted are shallow wells. So our water's safe, and we've been very proactive in continuing to apply filtration and find additional water sources and work with the Air Force. So I would say as of right now, we are ahead of the curve.
Great. I think our listeners would be very happy to hear that.
Hey, me too. I'm happy to hear it.
Okay, so at the end of your first term, what differences are we going to see that you've made impacts on for our town?
Yeah, I think infrastructure will hopefully be noticeable. By the end of this year, I want to see noticeable change. I think there have been drainage issues in Pine Lake Park that they've been addressed gradually, but I want them addressed. I'd like to see roads really being redone at a more expedited rate. I'd like to see obviously it's boring, but being able to continue to turn on your faucet and have clean water, I think is a legacy I want to leave.
Right.
I think open space, from this 88-acre parcel will actually not by acreage, but by purchase price may, and again, I don't want to say for how the commissioners will vote, but may be the largest acquisition from the land trust history by price. So I think looking around and seeing that, hey, there was opportunity for developers to come in, and we have been able to successfully stop projects. I think road infrastructure is something I'll be important of while it may be boring, I want a legacy of to continue clean drinking water in town. When we took over, and I think the entire council and the entire administration, there was a tough, I think, budget scenario. When we took over in 2023, there was a $3 million budget gap from a number of reasons: post-COVID inflation, recycling, healthcare, pension systems, statutory obligations, contractual reasons. There was a very large gap in the budget that we had to take care of. So we wanted to, intelligently close that gap. It had been done by, spending from surplus to regulate the tax rate, but also a small tax increase. Now, this year we were able to spend back to a previous year's level in surplus, but now also a small tax increase, but handing off a better budget than I found. Starting in 2025, that gap will not be there, so I think the township will have more flexibility. I think if you really kind of dig into the budget, we had kept like our capital improvement fund flush. We have kept our eastern water and sewer surplus flush. We didn't want to go ahead and pillage those things because in case of emergencies and handing off a budget to another person, we want something better than we found it. So some of the things you may not see, I think we'll be in a much better financial position. I think our roads will be in a much better position, and especially our water infrastructure. So,
very good.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for being part of our show today.
Thank you for having me.
I think a lot of people are going to be very happy with what they hear.
Oh, I sure hope so. If they're not, they can call me.
We'll flash your number on
at the bottom of the screen.
At the bottom of the screen.
The ticker. Hey, well, anytime we'd like to do this, I'm open to it. It was an honor to have you guys come in, especially to the office. I can come to you next time. And anybody out there that needs anything, I want to be accessible, whether it be through Facebook, whether it be coming here, whether it be calling me. I try to come to the HOAs as much as I possibly can. But if you need something, please ask.
Great, we will.
Thank you.
This is Michael Blank, KLVW-TV.